I will go on my live machine, really kind of how to set up the machine. The manual has really good information, and I just copied a couple pictures about the bobbin on this one, but I'll go that through on my live machine. But they are the things that when we get the machine out of the box, we need to go through the information that is listed in the manual to take out some of the those bolts that are holding the head in place and pull the arms around. But I'm gonna really mainly going through then how do we do the oiling on it, how we change needles, how to insert bobbin, and kind of basic stuff on that one.
So when you get the brand new machine and you take the boxes out and you find on the top the box a manual. That's the best way to go through on the setting it up. My machine has been already set up, so I can't really demonstrate some of these, but that's the best way to go through or about lifting the machine. There are a little places for to put your fingers. 2 people can easily lift that machine. It weighs at 94 pounds, so it is fairly heavy machine. So just to have 2 strong people to lift it out of the packaging on the table, and also make sure that your table is fairly sturdy so that it can hold the machine when it shows and vibrates. My machine is in a koala cabinet that has been built for that machine, so it is a very stable cabinet. But then other things before you plug it in and turn the power on the machine. We need to make sure that you will adjust the legs, and that is where the little wrench comes with the toolbox that you can adjust that everything is level. And very, very important is that you will remove these fixing plates. These were marked really bright red colors, so you know that they're not meant to be there. So they are just holding the head in place when the machine was transported. And just to use that large hex Phillips screwdriver to remove those ones. I put mine into a little plastic bag in case I need to transport the machine for longer distance, or maybe if I will move houses and I want to put it back in a box for transportation. So I kept my fixing screws, but those are definitely, you need to take those ones out before you turn your machine on, because when we turn the machine on, the head will move, and that is something that we need to make sure that they've been removed. And then the antenna has been all kind of folded flat whenever they come out of the box, so we lift that one up, and then the display rotates. So just loosen those thumb screws a little bit, pull it back, and then remember to tighten, especially the one in the bottom. I need to kind of usually remind in the classes when I do this in the shop that make sure that this one on this display arm at the bottom screw is well tightened, not just finger tightened. I take that little round screwdriver and tighten it a little bit with that one, because twice it has happened to me that I had just finger tightened it, and when the machine was stitching and vibrating a little bit, that screw worked itself out, and it fell on actually it happened to be so lucky that it hit that arm where the hook connects. And I just heard this is bang sound, and I thought, oh, well, what was that for? And I noticed my machine was still happily stitching. Luckily, that bolt, the screw, it had pounds off in here on the back of the machine on the table. So it didn't kind of go between the arm that could have connected. So I was kind of lucky the 2 times it happened to me. I sometimes need to have same problem twice before I remember. So instead of remember the first time. So anyway, just a reminder, especially that one on the bottom, because it can rotate down. The others, if you don't have them so tight, unless they're really, really loose, I guess they could work themselves out. But just a reminder about that one. But otherwise, just to go through and put the display in the angle and the level that you like to have it, because depending on how high your cabinet is, or whether you want to use the display when you are sitting down or standing up. So just set it on the level you want. And then we can lift the thread antenna up. Again, you need to loosen the screws on that one. And then you can lift the antenna all the way up and tighten those screws. Rotate the little levels around. Again, the 6 needle is a little bit different, so depending on a machine, always best to go on your machine specific model to do this one. I'm using on a demo the currently latest 10 needle machine, so that is what these displays are. But again, the best way to set the machine up is to use with your machine's manual on this first part. So because mine's been already set up, so I can't really display those ones, how to take it out of the box. We will help you at the shop a lot in case you have any questions. Anytime in doubt, we will help on that one. So I'm going to go back in the machine now, and then I'm going to show about on the oil in the machine and some of the other basic operation.
Well, we always have to take care and maintain a little bit our babies. So the important, kind of like in a sewing machine, we need to remove the lint and cut thread tails from the bobbin area. I put frequently. Typically when I'm changing bobbins, I kind of have a look a bit if there is any lint or those little cut thread tails. I'll get those out pretty much every time I change a bobbin. But then every once in a while I take a little bit of a bigger cleaning when I take the stitch blade out and use a brush and a vacuum cleaner to get all that lint out. And I just put again a reminder, we do not want to blow all that things into the machine because it's no good there. It will actually suck all the oil out of your gears. So we want to get all of that lint and thread tails out. So vacuum cleaner and brush are your best tools. And then I said before you vacuum, you can remove your bobbin case and the stitch plate also, then remove everything. And then a reminder, replacing those needles frequently, they do dull out. I kind of every once in a while take my big spring cleaning, actually more often than once a year. But I cannot, that's when I take my vacuum cleaner brush and I change all my needles at the same time. And then less problems you have when you have good quality thread because it's like you have a Ferrari, so you don't want to put low octane gas on it. And then as a good reminder, like any big mechanical equipment, it's good to have it serviced. There are parts that we can put a little bit of oil, and we need to put a little bit of oil on a race area every time we use the machine. But then that's not enough for the rest of its life. We need to have the machine serviced where the service technician can open the covers, do a really good cleaning on inside that we can't get with our vacuum cleaner. And then they also put lots of grease and oil in the spots that are needed. So it's good to have a spa treatment for your machine at least once a year. And unless you use it even really lot, you may have to do it more frequently, but it's good to have at least once a year, whether you use it or not. Actually, it's worse not to have it used because then it just sits and kind of all the gears kind of set. And that's a reminder, when you purchase the machine from Quilts and Lace, your first service is free. And then if you have a baby lock one, if you got the machine with I think we might still have some gold standards going on, but the new version of it's called Love Sewing Membership. If you have that one extended warranty, then you have, depending on what one of those ones we still have going, either 3 or 4 years of free service. So that's a great bundle because you get your service, plus it covers some of the parts that are not covered under warranty.
I will go through how to do the oiling of the machine, because every time when we turn the machine on, we need to put a little drop of oil. There is a really good video built in on especially all the newer machines, and Doug Thompson from Babylock, he puts once a month really good tips for from the service department, and he calls them from the workbench. So if you go on a video that he made, I believe it was sometime in early 2019, he shows a really good video about oiling the multi-needle machine. So that's a good video to watch. His camera was much better than mine, but I will do a little my step about it too. So when I turn my machine on, the display on the screen will warn that the machine will move. Actually, the head moves and the embroidery, the driver, the arm moves, the frame holder moves. And then it'll just remind me that I need to put a little drop of oil. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the machine, and then I will show how to do the oiling. And it has a reminder. Now it tells me put at least drop of oil, and then the warning that the machine will move. I will touch OK. And the hair and the embroidery arm will move, and that puts a needle in the number 1 needle position. So depending on a machine, if you have an older 6 or 10 needle machine, you need to use the hand wheel behind the machine and rotate it to the position that will put the hook in a place that is easy to put the oil. If you have some of the newer machines, the latest 10 needle and 6 needle machines, these ones we have an oiling position on the screen. My machine on the home page, really actually any page, I see this bottom row. And if I touch this button that has a picture of needles and the frame, one of the buttons on that screen is an oiling position. And it will remind me that the hand will rotate automatically the position where it can be easily oiled. So yep, I keep my hands away, that's okay. And it will tell me then that I need to put a drop of oil onto the hook. And then after I finish that one, when I touch OK, the hook will move back into the original position. Okay, I'm gonna open the bobbin cover. And then you can see my machine has been used quite a bit and I haven't cleaned it a little while, but partially I left it in there so I can show that how important it is to do the cleaning. And often whenever I'm changing bobbins or doing the oiling, this is a good time to take some of this lint out. So I will use the little brush. This is kind of like my daily cleaning, so that before I do the big screen cleaning, I just take all the lint that I can see visibly in this area even without taking the stitch plate out. But that's a kind of good way to get that some of the lint out already. And then to remove the bobbin, if this little picker, if it was pulled in, it has the state inside, the machine manual tells that you could pull it out. Usually it comes out when I open, it should be there anyway. So I'm going to just to pull the little lever, take my bobbin out, and we put that on a table. So my bobbin has moved now, my race has moved in the right position for the oiling. And I said that every time I see little thread tails or lint, that's a good time to take it out because we don't need those ones in there. So we could use the oiler that came with the machine. Again, as a reminder, if you do use that one, and when you use it, you have to make a little hole on it. Just make a tiniest hole you can, because otherwise you, instead of getting a little drop, you get a big blob. I like using my my little needlepoint oiler because I get the exact spot. There's even a little picture in the lid that shows where the oil goes. Now again, depending a little bit who you ask about this one, some of the service technicians, they like to just to put the oil on this spot, because the area that rotates the hook and the race, that's where we need to put the oil. So we could just put the drop there, and the manual and the instructions really tell you to put it on the side. And there's a little kind of like a little V. So if I put my the oiler on that little V and just give one little drop, and I just get tiny little drop with this one. So that is why I like to use this this oiler. There's also even a little hole that sometimes I try to get it through that one. That this is the best to kind of go on the side, put a little drop of oil, and then I normally rotate the hand wheel a little bit. So if I have a machine that doesn't have the automatic button, I will go actually like kind of wiggle it back and forth a little bit. On my machine, what I will do is after I do the oiling, I will touch OK. And then I will touch this button again and more. I may do it a couple times. What it does is just kind of rotates the hook back and forth a little bit. That allows the oil get already distributed. And if I just put that tiny little drop, so I'm going to show it in here where, that if I rotate it, you see that how the hook just rotates a little bit and then it goes back. So that just allows the oil to go around it. If I get too much oil on it, especially if you use this one and have a too big hole, you may want to take a little scrap fabric, put it in a hoop, sew a little leather or just a little design, or even a part of the design to get that excess oil out of it. But if I just use this little pen oiler, I normally get just the right amount, and I can just put the bobbin in, start embroidering. So that's just a little tips there. So now that I've taken my bobbin out, before I put it in, I usually check if there's any lint inside, just to kind of keep everything clean and nice and tidy. So I will just remove all the lint. And then occasionally you may want to take just a little piece of cardstock or even a business card and slide the corner underneath this little tension spring, because we might get some lint built up in there. So see, actually I had some dirt on mine, so I would not have seen that without. So I'm just going to do it again, just to get all of that lint out of that tension spring area too. And then I'm going to put the new bobbin. And on this bobbin, I usually, when I take a new one, I'll take the top layer out, because it may have, especially certain bobbin brands, they will put some starch on it. So I will take that top layer to kind of remove that, so it doesn't get all built up on the tension spring area. And then when I have a bobbin case going to open towards me, I will put the bobbin in, so that when I pull it in here, the bobbin is rotating clockwise. Then I pinch it between my fingers, and there's a little slit. I will get the thread on that one, and I'm still kind of holding it together between my thumb and fingers. And then I will get that thread under the tension. So there it is. Now it is on the tension area. And to put it back in, the open part will be facing up. And one reminder, if you possibly ever could never try to drop this one. I know sometimes you get kind of tumbled and this may drop, but if you drop this one on the floor, especially I have a tile floor, and if it lands so that these parts will hit the floor or the hard surface, they may bend a little bit in the way. And then if they are bent, what happens is that bobbin can't rotate easily inside the bobbin case. So that is just kind of like, I try to really protect mine that I don't drop it in. So I often pinch it between my thumb and index finger. And then I will just put it there, push it in, and snap. This tail is a little bit too long, so I will trim this just about 2-3 inches. If it's very short, it's not gonna catch, but I can't have it really this long either, because I just wound it up a lot. Okay, now just trim that excess, leave it in there, and close that door. So that was about kind of every morning, whenever or anytime when I turn on my machine. That is the little procedure that I do. I will put a drop of oil, just check to see any extra lint that there might be, remove that one. And I don't do the little cardstock trick every time. It's just when I do a little bit more work, but I usually try to look inside the bobbin case if I have any lint. But definitely my machine really would need to have a little bit more service. So let me show next how I take the cover out of it, this one, and we will clean underneath that. This handy little screwdriver that came with the machine is designed to take these screws off on the stitch plate to take it open. I also kind of noticed that I had some lint around in there, so I'm using those Swiffer seats. They're just kind of nice because they capture all the lint, and I can take it all. Let me take it also from inside there, but I can use this one to clean some of the lint. But then otherwise, this screwdriver, the screws are on the back, and my machine has a really nice built-in video too. So I will need to just use the little screwdriver, just a little by little, and I'm gonna pause the camera because it's a little bit hard for me to get around this when my camera is in front of it, but you kind of see how the screws are coming out. So I will remove those 2 screws, and then I will put the recording back. Okay, I got those 2 tiny little screws out, so I put them there for safe, and then my machine just went onto the little echo mode, and then I'm gonna lift up the stitch plate and this little piece of a plastic. And oh boy, you see that I've been a bad girl and I haven't cleaned it very well. This is important that we will take the lint out. Now normally I would take my little vacuum cleaner, and I have tiny little attachments that I can put to get onto the all the little areas to get this lint out. Never ever ever blow it into the machine, because if I use those air cans, and I will blow it right onto the machine. So if you use those air cans, you'd have to be very careful pointing it out that the lint wouldn't go inside. So I never use those. And see, you may find little thread tails. I can just kind of, when I put my brush around there, I get lots of little lint out and little thread tails. So I just kind of clean it up. The vacuum cleaner and the brush is really the best friends. So after I get all this cleaned out, then I will put that little spacer back. Just goes, oops. Try to do things one-handed. Doesn't always work very good. Use the other one too. It'll just stays there, and then I will put my cover back, and then use those screws to tighten it back. Again, I'm gonna do a little bit more cleaning, get all that lint out of the way, and then I can put it back. But I just want to show that this is it's very easy to do the cleaning on this one. All I had to do is just remove those couple screws, and then I can put the brush in the vacuum cleaner to take the lint out. Okay, I got it all cleaned. And after, when I looked a bit closer, there was quite a bit thread tails and lint inside the machine, especially on the knife area, as you may see some little thread tails. So just get those all out. Sometimes maybe even the tweezers help to get some of the pieces from inside. And then I just use my screwdriver to put the stitch plate back. And I had a little white space first underneath there. And now that is all ready to me to put the bobbin case and the bobbin in the machine. And I just snap it in place, and I can close the door. So that was a little bit of a cleaning and oiling. The oiling obviously is the one that we do more frequently, and then a little more of that bigger screen cleaning. I do like a spring cleaning in there. Obviously it needed to be done. So that was good for the recording, because sometimes when we have a recording on a brand new machines and there's no lint. So, but actually here you can see lint and thread tails will accumulate there. It's another part that we need to occasionally put some oil, and that would be on a needle pass. The manual has instructions about this one, but Doug Thompson from Babylog on his videos, the Workbench with Doug, has a really good video. Again, his cameras are much better than mine, but I will try to show on mine, but you may want to really look his video, because he shows it really good how to clean that, how to put a little bit oil on the needle bar. So when I have my needle at the moment in the number 1 position, I can easily pull some of these needle bars down. I can go up to the first 4 from the left side, but then I can't really get all the way. But I'll show you how we get onto these others, because these are now kind of locked in place, other than again the couple first ones. So I'm going to use the now number 10 needle bar, and I will pull it out, and you see there's a little felt that will absorb the oil. The manual tells you just to put a drop of oil on this one. But the way Doug described was that if you just put it on this one, it really doesn't get all the way. So what he wants to do is that when you put that, when you put the oil, just to a drop or 2 oil on that one. Again, I like to use my little oiler, get a little drop of oil there. But then push this one up. And if I use my little needle point oiler, I can easily get it all the way up. Other one, you could use these little tweezers to get it up. And when I let it go, it kind of easily oils that entire needle bar. So I would do that one for all my needles for as far as I can go. Like on this one, I can go all the way those first 4. Now this one is stuck up to the number 3. The number 2 and 1 I can do already on this position. But then how to get these other ones in the middle from 3 to 6, I will move the head a little bit. And how do I move the head? So how I can move easily to needle bar. On my machine, that place that I had the oil in, I can also access the needle bars. So if I touch any of the numbers, my head just moves onto that one. So let me go and put my needle bar in the number 5 position. And now, because I was able to go all the way to number 7, so the first 4, but now I can pull 6, 5, and 4. Number 3 is still stuck. So I'm gonna go and I will just start 7 on that one, or anything kind of a further beyond. And actually I need to go, maybe I'll go all the way to 10 on that one. Then I can easily access the remaining needle bars on this one too. So sometimes just moving the head a little bit that we can go on the ones in the middle too. Next, how do we change needles on the machine? There's a really good video on some of the newer machines that is built in shows it's a little bit about 1 minute video. But what we need to have is the Allen key that came with the machine. And the other helpful tool would be this little gray tool that has a place to hold the needle. So if I pull this needle bar down, so get those thread tails out. So there's the Allen key, so I'll put my Allen key all the way in, and then lefty loosey, righty tighty. I'll just loosen the screw enough to get my needle out. These are household sewing machine needles, the embroidery needles. And the flat side goes the back, like in a sewing machine. So I will just get that one in, and I will just get it gonna go in there. And where this little tool is handy, when I push the button, I can get that arm around it, so that way it gives me a little bit easier access to get that needle in. And the important part on this one is that the tip of that, as it's called the butt of the needle, the tip is, or the way the eye is. But the butt of the needle, you can kind of maybe see on this image, but again, the video in the machine really highlights this one, that we need to make sure you see that part of the needle, so it's all the way there, and that way we know that needle's all the way up. And then I will tighten it, get that little tool out, and here we have changed the needle. So I would just go ahead and then replace the needles. When I change them, I do them all at one time. I had recently changed all my needles, so I'm gonna leave them at the moment. I actually just took the one out and put it back. But that is how you would change. So just easy to pull it out, and then loosen the screw, take it out, and then use the little the tool to put it back in, and then make sure it's all the way up. Well, I'm gonna show how to check the bobbin tension. So your machine came with the little metal weight, and this is designed to check on the tension in a bobbin case. So I took the thread from the bobbin. I'm a bobbin in the bobbin case, and I just tied it into this over this little weight. And I need to put the bobbin against some flat surface. So I'm trying to see if I can get it on the camera by just putting on this little flat part. So if my weight will just fall down on its own, that means my tension is way too tight on it. I need to have a little kind of like a little yo-yo. When I pull it down, it'll kind of go down, but it does not. It doesn't go all the way just automatically. If it's really hard to pull and like doesn't even do that, if I do a little like a yo-yo movement in there, if it doesn't move at all, your tension might be too tight. That is why we have this little tiny screwdriver, and that is the tension screw that we would then adjust. And the tension screw is just a tiny rotation makes a big difference. So lefty loosey, righty tighty on this little tension screw, just maybe half a turn at a time. But this is the weight, and the manual has really good description about this too. It was kind of hard to try to show it in the camera at the same time, but and anytime if you're in doubt, you can of course always just to bring the bobbin case into the shop, and Alan can check that one. He has tension cases that he can check that one too. I'm gonna try to show the upper threading. In the manual has a really good description, and then again the machines that have some of the built-in videos, there's a really good more detailed video that is shown on that machine. So I moved my camera out of the way to kind of show most part of the machine. And I had taken the thread totally out from the needle number 10 position, because I think that's the easiest for me to show. Of course, whenever we pick up the design and then we know what color thread to use, I'm just going to put some thread at the moment so that I can show you the threading. Because most times I do not thread it all the way from the beginning. Most times I would just cut it the thread at the spool, and then I will tie a knot, pull it through. That way I don't have to go through all the threading. But when you get your machine as a brand new machine, there is no thread in it. So that is why then you have to know how to rethread it. It really is very simple. Everything is numbered very well and guided. So with the help of the manual, and if you have a machine with the videos, those videos are great. So again, when if you are transporting the machine, maybe taking it to service or wherever you need to transport, you need to make sure that then you lift this antenna all the way up. So there's a couple of screws on that one. I will then loosen those, pull this antenna up, and then tighten these ones. So to put this antenna back down, you'd have to loosen them a lot, and then this gonna pull it out to get it down. But I need to make sure it's all the way up. And then on the 10 needle machine, again, it's a bit different on a 6 needle, but 10 needle we have these little slots that there's a lever. For threading, I'm gonna open it. For embroidery, I will keep it closed. So it's just a little pre-tension to take some of those kinks out of the way. So I'm gonna go and start threading to number 10. So again, all we have to do is just to follow those numbers on our threading guide. Okay, I'm just gonna put the spool of thread and then start weaving it in. So here is my first number 10 hole, and then the second one. And then I go through the antenna. sorry, to be kind of away a little bit. Then I have one more hole, and then there's a pre-tension, there's a hole behind there. I will get it through that hole, and then I will take the thread like a little dental floss, get it under the pre-tension, and this little pre-tension is a similar knob as the one in the front. So make sure I get it under that little spring. To show, here's the thread goes on that thread guide. On the ones in the row in the back, we have two slots. The row in the front, we just have a one slot in that antenna part, and then we will go through that hole, and then through the other hole. Then there is the knob that's behind the pre-tension. There's the hole, and then I just got the thread underneath that little pre-tension. Now then, after the pre-tension, we'll go around the tension disc, and that is the upper tension. So now for number 10 needle, if I just put the thread on the side, it's not going to be under the tension, and you will get after a few stitches a message in the machine that either your upper thread was broken, your bobbin thread is out. So we need to make sure that you follow the arrow. So on this one, I will go, sorry, my hand is on the way. I'm going to go around that little tension disc one time. And then I will get it behind the little bar there, down to the machine. And then we'll I'm trying to keep my hands away, it doesn't work very well. So then we go around this other bar, and then we have a similar kind of a pre-tension, so we need to get the thread underneath. I'm gonna get it on, so after I got that little stop in there, and then I'll get it under that tension, and then it is kind of like threading your normal sewing machine. We go down, up, and then that is our take-up lever. So in this case, we need to weave the thread tail through the take-up lever hole, and then just to pull it up straight. We have one more hole. Just goes from up and down. And then we need to get this thread behind this little hook. If I don't have any hook on a machine, it's pretty easy. I could even pull this one down and catch it behind there. But then if you have a hook in the machine, and especially sewing table in front of it, it's kind of hard to reach there. The machine came with a little tool that I could just use this one to get that thread behind the little hook. So now if I pull it down, so it's behind that little hook. But this one is kind of short. I have an extra tool, and we sell these in a shop. This is really, really handy tool. It has a hook on one side and a little kind of a fork on the other side. So I just get this thread on this fork and go there, pull it, and it just gets nicely behind this hook. Then I need to go and move my needle onto the number 10 position so that I can use the needle threader. On my machine, I will just touch this button, and I can move my needle on number 10 position. Close it. And then on my machine, there is a needle threader button. I will push that one, and there's a little needle threader that just went over the eye of the needle. And then I like to use again the same hook, so I can get the thread under the little fork. There's like two arms go over the eye of the needle, and I will get this. And then there's another little piece of metal. I get it underneath on this one. Take it over on the top. And my thread tail was just so short. Let me pull a little bit more thread in here. So again, I'm gonna go under, and then I go over that little plastic part in the direction of the arrow. There's a thread cutter, it'll cut the thread, and then I'll push again that needle threader button in my machine. So I had kind of pulled some of these others out when I was oiling it. So I'm gonna go, let me show another one. Let's just go on number 10. Again, I can just use this little tool. You pull a little bit more thread, get it on that hook, put my needle threader in place, get it over number 9, push it one more time. So it is pretty easy to then to thread. Okay, like if I just needed to change the one's color, I would normally cut the thread at the spool, tie a knot, pull it through, rather than doing all that threading. But when you've been servicing the machine, you may have taken it all out. And after we get the machine threaded, we are all ready to go and work on finding the design and do some embroidery. Button on the bottom row is the settings. This is where we can customize the machine. The frame display will kind of just give a little guidance on how I want the display to show. The default, I'm not sure what the default was, but I can change it between to having a center icon or the grid, which is the same grid that comes with the standard hoops, the 3/8 of an inch grid, which is a 10mm grid. Or then I can have it as a 1-inch grid, or then crosshairs, or then just blank. So I can change it between then those same settings without the crosshairs. So we have several ways I can display my screen. I'm just going to leave it blank this time. Then as for how it shows the hoop size, it will read what hoop size I have. So I have the driver A, and then at the moment that my driver, I have set it up in a position for the 8x12 hoop. So it will show that one. If I put the drive B, it will show that one and whichever hoop I have put on this. So it will actually read it from the machine. Then we can change, set how we want to show the color. So I was showing mine as a name of color. So when I picked up the design, all it was showing was maybe yellow or red or just a basic name. I could have it to show us a time, how many minutes it will take to show that color, or I can show it as a certain thread brand as a color number. And on this one, we have just a handful of different colors I can pick up. The embroidery, that is the Prado colors. I'm going to put mine back to name of color because I have so many different brands that I've been using, so I just leave it that way. And then on the PES thread code, because this machine can read PES designs as well as the DST designs and PHC. So yes, I want to be able to read that code, so I turn that one on. And then we can customize if I want to have the background on my sewing area. If I want to audition colors, I can change those colors. And I can also change the background of my thumbnails. So if I want to have a bright red background, and what that means when I pick up some of the designs, so everything is showing that red background. So if I want to see how those colors and those designs would look on my red shirt, I can do that one. We go back, I'm going to turn that one back to white. Then on the next page, we can turn off the thread trimming, because automatically it would end of color would trim my threads. And then I have a DST settings. So depending on the DST, if you use the commercial DST formats, there are different versions. I would refer the manual on that one. I pretty much just left that one as a default. Short stitch delete. Well, if you have lots of tiny stitches, we don't really want to have the machine to show those ones. So that ways we can have those ones to be deleted. And the default is 0.012 inches. You can make it shorter or you can make it longer. Again, I kind of trusted the manufacturer on that one. Then standard tail, that is how long my machine, when it does the trimming, how long tail it leaves for the top thread. So if I have some reason for certain threads that they will kind of get cut short, I could go and have it as a long tail. Usually I just leave it for standard tail. Basting distance, we can add for any design that I have. Let me just pick up some design there. I can add basting stitches. Touch edit end, and here's a button that I'll touch it and will put basting stitches around it. I had put my settings to be very close, because last time when I was using this one, my design was so big it just barely fitted in a hoop, so I didn't have much of an extra space to put that basting. So if I have this one as where the default is, that is 5mm, I would get it a little bit further out. But again, that is the only time I would adjust that one. Acceleration, that is just how fast my head will move onto the different colors. Mine, I had just left it as a standard, but you can change it to high. Again, I haven't really used that one. It actually wasn't even there on the very original load. My manual, because it was the original manual with this machine, it didn't even have this information. I had to go on the brother website and download an extra page to even explain what that means. It just popped up in there one day. The next page, we will be able to assign colors. So on this one, we can anchor the colors. That way it will hold that, it will not automatically reassign those color numbers. So again, I was forcing to use some thread on the last 10 needle because it was the easiest for me to access on my area. So I had just locked everything for that case, so that color was forced on that last spool. But on this case, if I don't want to have it anchored anymore, I just have to reset. So that'll take those anchors out. So I don't really need these all anchored at the moment. Actually, I'm gonna leave 2 of them anchored. I have normally black and white spools, large spools in the middle of the machine, because from where my machine is, it's the hardest ones to catch or to change those spools. So I have anchored my black and white thread because those are the ones I use quite a bit. So I just don't let my machine to reassign those ones. I'll do all these other ones. And on mine, because I'm using just the name of color, and I'm normally using the 64 color table. So that way I can just to pick up in from my designs, I can use the 64 color table. I could also, if I want to have a little bit bigger, mine doesn't look like when they come from the factory, because I had added custom colors in this one. I was doing a project that I was using a different Robinson Anton rayon threads, so I entered my colors in this one. The default, that one is a Robinson Anton polyester, and there's the whole 300 colors on that one. But then when I wanted to add my own colors, it deletes that color table, and then I can put my own colors on this one. Took a while me to enter them once, because I just had to go on the next one and then enter the color number and set it. But that way, when I had set those ones, and now my 300 color table will be reading those from my custom thread table. If I want to go back on those default ones, I don't have to enter them back manually. I can just go and download the file from the brother website or the Babylock website if you have a Babylock machine, and then put in a memory stick and read it from there. So it's not like I will lose them permanently. So this is where we can anchor to some of the thread colors, but we can also on these newer machines turn off the needle threader if I want it. So if I put a very small needle, let's say on this one, and I want it to make sure that I don't accidentally use my needle threader, so I can turn my needle threader off on that one. So that way is now my 10 needle. If I try to push the needle threader button, it doesn't let me do that one. And to take it off, I just touch it again. Other things I can change on this one, I can assign that the maximum speed on certain needles as well. Then on next page we have timers. There are 3 timers, and I have set some of these ones. Actually, they come from the factory this way, but I had set my timers a little bit. The first timer, so this timer at the moment is the screensaver. And the screensaver, if I don't touch the machine or use it, 5 minutes, and I can adjust the time on it too, or even turn it off if I don't want to have a screensaver. But I can have the machine to kind of save the screen a bit. It shows 5 images. And if I touch the select, it will show those 5 pictures that is displayed. If you don't like those ones, you can put your own photographs there too. It takes a little while to read this one, so there we go. So these are the ones it shows. If I want to put my own, I just customize, put my JPEG pictures in the memory stick, and then I can have those ones instead of the default ones. I'm gonna leave mine the default. But then on my machine, if it's another 5 minutes goes, total meaning 10 minutes that I haven't touched the screen or had my machine running, my echo mode will kick in. in that case, the lights just go off and my screen goes blank. It just saves a little bit of energy and on the screen on my machine. And then when I want to go back to use it, all I have to do is to touch the screen and it's back where I left it. But then if a whole hour has gone past that I have not touched it, my shutdown support mode goes on. It electronically turns my machine off. So it's been very handy feature because sometimes I think that I just go a little bit out of the sewing room and then I end up doing something else and something else. And then I go to bed and then come back my sewing room next day and notice that, oh, I'm glad that she turned itself off because I forgot to do that one. So again, I like my timers, but if you don't want, you can always turn them off. You can use one or two or all three. It's just all customizable. If it does the shutdown support mode, if it turns off on its own, only thing it can't do is to flip that switch to turn it on. Physically, there is not a little hand that would come out to do that. So when you come back to the machine and touch the screen, you'll kind of wake up and say on the blank screen, on the top it says shutdown support mode was activated. Please turn the machine off and on. So you had to then physically flip the switch, wait a few seconds, turn it back on, and then it's back on. Then the opening screen. So when I turned my machine on for this presentation, I went and changed this one. Normally, I don't have that opening screen. So what it means that when I turn my machine on, it's not going to be showing those pretty pictures and kind of just to be like half awake. So that way it just goes straight onto my home page. Again, that is just my personal preference. This machine we have on the spool stand, we have LED lights. If I don't want those ones, I can turn them off or can have there's a couple different modes. I kind of like to have mine on because when my machine tells me which needles to thread, it will then blink that needle, that thread position and the color that I need to put on it. Again, I like that one, so I turn mine on. Lights. My very first 6 needle that I had didn't even have lights. So this was so cool when this machine we have lights. Little things make me happy. So the light the default is the maximum, but if for some reason I wanted to dim the lights or even turn it off, I can do that one. And we have a little speaker on this one, so anytime when I touch the screen, my machine beeps a little bit. If you don't want it to beep, you can turn it off. The default is a little bit louder. I can go with like really loud. Again, my personal preferences, I like the little volume because then I know that when I touched it, it was recognized and also if it's trying to tell me something, it will beep. So again, my personal preference. That's why we say this is kind of where we customize. Then the page 5, we can link multiple machines together. So if you have several, either 6 or 10 needles, we can link them together. And that means that then I would not use the screen to send the design. I will need to either with the Brother, the P11 software or Babylock, the palette software. And then I will send the designs from that software and I can link up to 4 machines together. The design doesn't have to be the same one for all the machines. So it's great if you do a production and you have multiple machines, so you can just send them from your computer. Of course, they have to be connected to your computer too. Then what we have is the manual color sequence on this one. This is where we can customize. Do I want to have my machine to use the color memory when it automatically assigns the spools? Or if I want to use the manual setup. I'm going to leave mine as a color memory at the moment. I'll show both ways. Then we have thread sensor. What that means is that my machine will stop and tell if my bobbin thread run out or if my upper thread broke. And it's the same sensor because there really isn't a sensor in the bobbin area. The sensor is on the top where the knobs are, because whenever we have the top thread going, there's a little encoder that rotates. So whenever that encoder stops rotating, the machine says that, okay, well, either your top thread broke or you just run out of bobbin thread, and that's why your little encoder is not working anymore or not rotating anymore. So it just tells your top thread or bobbin thread is out. So most times I kind of look, yep, my needle is still threaded, then it must be the bobbin thread. And if your bobbin thread is out, it is totally literally out. There is no thread left on it. And usually you have to go back at least 10 stitches back, because it takes few stitches before that encoder recognizes it. But if you don't want to have, for some reason, the bobbin sensor and the top thread sensor, you can turn it off. Mouse pointer, if instead of me using the stylus, I could plug a USB mouse on my machine, and then I can customize what kind of pointer I would use. So units, I can have it either millimeters or inches. So last time what I've been doing, I was using inches. Most times I use millimeters. Again, it just depends what I do. I can have it set either way. So I'll leave it in this case for inches. Then on the display brightness, depending where my machine is and how bright I want to display, I can change that one. And then I can have my machine to talk other languages too if I wanted to, but I think I will leave it for English. Next page, it will show me the information about the machine, on how many hours and how many stitches this machine have been used. I have multiple counts. So I have the trip count and the total count, and it is in both on stitches and hours. So trip count is just to kind of since the last service. So actually when Alan serviced the machine, he had reset it, and looks like I may have to have another service coming up, because there's quite many millions of stitches done since that one. And then the total count just shows how many stitches I've done on these machines. Again, looks like a big number. I think there is like 11 or almost 11.5 million stitches. Well, there's still one more zero in there. That is nothing for this machine yet. It's still in its teenage years. And it then again shows the hours since the last service, when the timer was reset, and then the total time what has been used. So 408 hours the machine's been running. And the number on this one, that is the computer board number. So when I purchased that large design from the brother website, on the Embroidery, I then I had to enter my number, so that way that design is registered for me. And then we have a version number, and I just remembered that actually there is a new update for this one, being out for I guess 2-3 months. I may just have to show how to do the update on this one, because I'm one update behind. These are the free updates. There's a space in here in case they come up with some upgrades from the factory, so then it will display those. But so far there is no upgrades on this one. And then on the last page on the settings, because this machine has a camera, we can then take a picture of the background and then move the design where we need to. So I can take that picture by scanning with the standard or find a resolution. Most times I just do standard resolution. Doesn't take so long time to take it. Well, I'm gonna turn it on. And then what that because looked like there's a design that I had used the last time. I was making some crazy patches, and you can see the image behind there. Let me go back on the screen so the arm doesn't move. Oh, that's true. I had my pasting stitches around. So that way I can move my design, and it will show exactly where I would want to put that design on this this little bag. It was a little flap on the back that I was playing with. So let me go back, and if I go back on the last page, so that was just gonna show in my last scan. If I scan again, it will then overwrite that one, or if I don't want it, I can hit delete, and it tells, are you sure you want to delete the image? I say, okay, go ahead, close this one. Now I don't have that image in the background. Then go back one more. Then because of the camera scanning, we have also a fabric thickness sensor. If I have a really thick material, like a quilt sandwich or thick towel, because the camera is not exactly where the needles are, it's looking a little bit in an angle. So in that way, I can have my machine to first read the thickness on the fabric before it scans it, so we have a more accurate scan. On that case, if I turn it on and I touch the camera function in here, the image of the camera, it's going to first ask me to put one of these snowman stickers upside down, and it tells in the screen exactly where to put it, and then it will check where that sticker is, the height of it, and adjust the camera scanning accordingly. I only use it when I have heavier materials. So most times I just leave it off. It's just one less step. Then I can turn on a camera view area. What that means, that if I go on the next screen, move it in there, still a little box around it now. Because this machine, I can show the image kind of just like a picture behind it. Because I don't have at the moment anything underneath in there. I don't have my turned on a camera, but actually if I do that one, if I touch this one, the head will move. So you just see really the bobbin area there. So if I put my hand underneath, so I can superimpose that design over that area. So that's another placement way I can do. So this little, when I turn it one off in there, let me go back. Actually, let me turn it off on that one. Here we go. So this way, it just shows that that would be the area that the camera can display. Okay, me go ahead and turn that one on. I don't very often use that one. And then a rotation angle lines. I could even have those ones shown on. That's kind of same when I use my camera. It will show those little rotation lines on that one. Let me turn that one off. So let me go and turn that one again. Most times I don't use those ones, but again they are sometimes handy. Most pages we have couple symbols on this one. When I say most pages, this one page I don't have the reset button because there's nothing to reset. But what this allows me to do, that if I had changed certain settings and I just want to have this page to be set for factory defaults, so it will do just this one page. So now it just put everything in the factory settings. So I can just reset things on page by page. This last one on here, if I had USB stick connected, it would save a JPEG picture of the screen. That's all that those little buttons do.